What's up guys, Joseph Brasher from Top Velocity Northwest. Today I'll be reacting to a video called Teaching Correct Pitching Mechanics by DNA Sports. It says 50,000 views. They have a bunch of other pitching videos that have a ton more views. And yeah, we're just going to dive in. I'm going to react to see what they are teaching. So let's just go for it.
We're going to work on the basics, but this can all be done with everybody doing it at once. A lot of shadow drills. And then when you're warming up, if you have pitchers, which everybody should be a pitcher, you should throw to 4 targets, up and in, up and away, down and in, down and away. Okay, always throw, not just to the glove. The glove has to be here, 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 here. Okay, so we always want, when we don't have a lot of time for...
So that's... I'm not really criticizing this guy. I'm just talking about it in general. If we're trying to work on mechanics and our focus is mechanics, then we also shouldn't be simultaneously working on accuracy, because that's something completely different. Because accuracy and precision of our pitches has to do with the repeatability of our delivery. So if you're trying to make mechanical changes, but you're also trying to throw to a target, aka repeat your delivery, then you're not really working on changing your mechanics. So when I'm really working hard on changing a pitcher's mechanics, I don't care about the target. I have a net there. Because we're trying to make changes. The ball should actually not be accurate because there's biomechanical changes happening. But if you work on accuracy and precision, then you do want to repeat those mechanics. So I always found those two things kind of contradictory.
For pitching, you work on pitching when you're warming up. And you work on from the, well, you guys don't have the stretch. So we work on always the windup. Okay, now, here's...
Okay, I think it's good to not... misunderstand what he's saying. I think he's teaching Little League in this, and for Little Leaguers there is no stretch. So when he said always wind up, I think he's referring to the Little League age group. So he's going to be teaching from the wind up, obviously, just to be fair.
One of our pitchers,
because I know I had a rant in a previous video about how you should just teach from the stretch, but in Little League everyone throws from the wind up. So this is just how he's doing it. So let's just be fair to him.
He's a sophomore. He pitched last year as a freshman. The reason why he pitched last year is he got the grasp of how to pitch the correct way, mechanically, mental toughness-wise, command of the strike zone, command of his breaking pitches, okay? I'm not a big fan of curveballs and any...
Why? Why are you not a big fan of curveballs? Studies show when curveballs are thrown properly, they're less stressful on the arm than fastball, and certainly less stressful than a slider, for instance. So that's just kind of an interesting blanket statement to make.
Any age, but especially the young age.
Okay. Isn't this kid like a sophomore in high school? Just,
okay, because curveballs, nobody knows how to teach it the right way.
Okay, I could sort of agree with that, where he's like, don't teach curveballs because no one knows how to teach it. Kind of makes sense, but if you do know how to teach it correctly, then you should definitely throw them.
Okay, so the curveball is the only thing that comes up out of your hand, and kids don't have enough strength to do that. So therefore, we work on other things.
I mean, strength has nothing to do with how the ball comes out of your hand. It has to do with the grip and the biomechanics around it. So,
Command of the fastball, command of the changeup. He's got a little bit of a cutter and a slider.
Curveball is certainly much safer than a cutter or a slider, which can not only be thrown at higher velocities, but the biomechanical changes to pronating the ball correctly at release is much harder to learn, in my opinion, than the sort of delayed pronation that occurs with the curveball.
Slider is really tough on young arms, so we're just going to work on. We're going to show.
Okay, and he's sliders really tough on young arms. Okay, fair enough.
Mechanics properly. Again, this is the mound. Okay, his foot should be in the middle of the rubber. Okay, all you want to do is get the motion started. Okay, so now he's already ready. You see, he didn't go back like this, or he didn't go back like this. He just wants to get the motion started.
Yeah, I tend to come more from this school of thought. Let's just get the motion started. Small step, go. So, yeah.
So he get into his pivot. Okay, so now he's in there and he hangs. Okay, And the weight is on the inside of his back foot. Okay? So we can get the maximum pivot. Okay? Why is the pivot so important? The pivot is important.
Okay, so there's many things to unpack here. But the first one would be the lift and balance. You guys know this by now. Lift and balance just drives me nuts because it's a myth. It's been propagated and it doesn't make any sense. So yeah, just you can watch other videos to know what I think about lift and balance. It's not good. You don't want to do it. It doesn't help velocity or accuracy. He says you want the weight on the inside of the back foot to maximize the pivot. But since a pivot is a rotational movement, you're going to want the maximum amount of torsion or twisting force or resistance in that back knee if you want to get the maximum pivot. If your weight's on the inside, it's actually going to cause your knee to collapse down, because the weight's here, your knee's actually collapsing down and you're not holding stability or torsion in that back leg. So even if you're an all pivoting sort of mechanics approach, putting the weight on the inside of the back foot would not be the way to do it.
Like it is in hitting, because pitching and hitting are the same.
He's not correct about that. Pitching and hitting are not the same, because you're rotating the barrel in one. You're actually trying to create the maximum amount of rotational momentum and velocity, and in pitching, you're actually trying to transfer energy through both linear and rotational movements through the kinetic chain to maximize velocity in one specific plane.
Okay? You do like this when you hit. You do like that when you pitch.
I mean, some pitchers do, but eventually there has to be a linear component to it in order to release the ball towards the catcher, or else your arm would just keep spinning rotationally and the ball would be released like that.
And what you have the mound, so you can lean against that mound. And anybody who tells you got to push off the rubber, you tell them that's not the way to do it, because it's.
So this guy's 100% wrong. Ground reaction forces are strongly correlated to ball velocity, strongly correlated to hip rotation, separation. Pushing off the rubber or leg drive is the best way to increase pitching velocity through the top velocity 3x approach. This guy's just not citing anything he's saying, so.
Not the way to do it. You pivot off the rubber.
I mean, you do rotate. There is rotation in the drive, but you don't just straight pivot. There's not like no ground reaction forces. Even if you just rotate or pivot off the rubber, there is some amount of ground reaction forces. So that's not really correct either.
Okay, so we have our pitchers hang there, again, because the power comes from the backside.
Okay, I mean, a lot of the power does come from that back leg, but why would that have to do with hanging? It says our pitchers hang there because the power comes from the backside. Why can't the power come from the backside in a slide step? Or if there's some momentum into that lift. So that's kind of nonsensical.
The front side should be cut off, basically, because all the front side does is get you into problems.
I agree with him on that, because the front side really, you can cause problems real quick with the front side. Swinging it open, getting too much momentum with that front leg is bad news. So I agree with him on that for sure.
Okay? Everything is opened up by the backside. So again, like in hitting, you don't want to open up on your own early. You don't want to open up, especially pitching early, because the ball will always fly high. As a lefty, the ball is going to go up and in to a left-hander. For a righty, up and into a right-hander. So we want to make sure.
I mean, if you're flying open early with the front side, it can trigger some early trunk rotation and cause you just to miss in general from a side-to-side angle. I wouldn't say you would always miss up and in. You could argue the contrary, because if you're going to rotate early, your shoulders are rotating earlier. And so actually the angle of release is actually further across to, if you're a right-hander, to your left side, causing you to miss down in a way. So I wouldn't say that's like a hard rule of thumb or anything.
And again, we worked on something with him the other day. Don't collapse the backside. He was collapsing his backside.
Okay, so he was kind of conflating two things together, but like adding some dip in the trunk or some backwards tilt in the trunk isn't the same as collapsing the backside. They can go together. So just in general, you don't want to collapse that backside. He is correct, because then you have no stability in that leg. But you can have some backwards dip in that trunk and not collapse the backside. If you do too much, then yeah, you will. So I would say he's mostly right about that.
And the ball was going way out of the strike zone with nothing on it. We want to make sure that he stays on top of the ball. The only way you stay on top of the ball is to have a strong backside. So,
I, only way to stay on top of the ball is have a strong backside. There's just a lot of buzzwords here, and I'm not quite maybe understanding what he's getting at all the time.
he gets in a pivot. He hides the ball, number one. Okay. Weight should be middle in. Okay, stride. Look at he's
But
not
why should the weight be middle in? He doesn't explain that really.
rotated yet at all.
So here we go again with this. People teaching this position. Let's see if we.
Okay.
When we land, our foot is not closed off. When pitchers land, high velocity pitchers, I mean even youth pitchers, when they land, that foot is at least 60 to 70 degrees open. So no one ever lands like this. Yes, this is taught all the time, which probably shows me that this guy doesn't look at any slow motion or high speed footage. So it's like, why are we continuing to teach this? And he also teaches the pivot, but this kid's knee, I mean, there's almost no internal rotation on that back knee, and that foot is completely in. This is basically like a knee slamming approach. So that's kind of interesting.
And his glove should be here to hide the ball. Okay. Both when you release the ball out of your glove, the thumb should be down on both hands.
I mean, that's not a rule of thumb either. That there's nothing that says your thumbs have to be down or anything. I mean, they can be like this. I would say you don't want the ball like this where it's like above and you're cutting across it. So like, I mean, it wouldn't hurt necessarily, but you don't have to have both thumbs down for sure.
Okay, the thumb should be down on both hands. Okay, that's camouflaging the ball. He hasn't rotated yet. So now he's going to get that tremendous pivot.
Not when he lands. Like when he lands, there should be rotation already occurring. So his hips and shoulders are both closed. There's basically going to be no separation now.
And he's going to fly outside.
Fly out? What?
Outside, okay? So he gets all the hip rotation he can. And you know how he lands? He lands on the ball of his foot.
So this is also wrong. So like, high velocity pitchers are shown to land on their ankle or the middle of their foot, and it's not even wrong to land flat-footed, but to land on the ball of your foot, that's just a myth.
And why do you land on the ball of your foot? Because you want to make sure that you don't stop your hip rotation or don't jar your release by landing on your heel. Okay? His shoulders, it's called hip-shoulder separation. The hips move first when he plants. Okay?
Dave, I don't know if you want to point out where that front foot is because we see a lot of kids making that mistake.
Okay. See how aligned it is? It's aligned straight. A lot of the
Okay, nothing wrong with teaching that.
Dominican pitchers like Pedro Martinez and a couple American pitchers, Kurt Schilling, would land a little open.
So Pedro Martinez lands open. I don't think so. I'll have to get some high-speed footage of that. We'll have to do a breakdown of that, but I'm going to need some evidence.
Fine, too, because you want to get that back hip behind and through the ball. Okay? Our problem is when he lands and he throws across his body.
See, I have the opposite view. I mean, this is exaggerated. Obviously, he's like a good foot across. That is too much. You want to land 0 to 8 inches across your body, and then you basically don't want to land open. And landing open is actually sort of a sign of maybe bigger mechanical problems.
You stop everything. Okay, so you're here and you stop your own hip rotation. You stop it. Okay?
Notice the toe, too.
You stop your hip. I mean, if you land really far across your body, then yeah, it's going to be difficult to open your hips up. So I guess from that point of view, he's correct. But if you're landing slightly across your body, your hip rotation is going to be more effective because it's creating more overall torsion and torque in your body.
Dave, but the toe's here when he lands. It's not out like this.
Yeah, this guy's completely wrong because no one lands like this. No one lands completely closed. That's just ridiculous.
Same thing in hitting. Pitching and hitting are the same.
No, pitching and hitting are not the same. And even the hitters don't land with their foot completely closed. They're usually slightly open, and then it opens through their rotation.
Front foot's closed, or right at maybe about 45 degrees or a little bit less than that.
Yeah, he leads with the side of his foot. When you lead with the side of your foot, you naturally cock your front hip. Okay, so you don't have to like turn it in like this. You lead here, it cocks. Okay? So, That's more power. That's more velocity. Okay?
What?
So, hip-shoulder separation. Again, when he lands straight up. Okay, the hips go first, shoulders go second.
See, if you're landing with your hips completely closed, it's going to be very, very hard to get any sort of significant hip to shoulder separation. So I don't really know where he thinks the separation's coming from.
Okay? And everything is behind the baseball. You can feel it. You don't drop your arm. Okay? Once you set your arm here, okay, he should be, when he lands, his hand should be up here. When he lands, he should be right here.
See, there's not enough elbow flexion for me there. That looked like 120, 130 degrees maybe of elbow flexion, which is not enough. Studies show it just inside 90 is the optimal range. Because the more elbow flexion you have, it actually is going to cause a bit of arm drag and possibly some hyperangulation. So,
okay.
And I would say his arm is a little too high, so you're actually going to be slightly below shoulder. He was even higher than that.
A pitcher when he lands, he's down here. He's going to be way late. He's slow out.
Well, because you're trying to be late. I mean, in an extent. I mean, he had the arm all the way down. Then yeah, you're just going to be ridiculously late and hyperangulate. But you want it to be semi-cocked, so you're able to get the most separation possible.
His glove. Okay, which means he can't get on top of the baseball, which means he can't be consistent throwing.
Well, just what does on top of the baseball mean? Because when you're pronated back here, you're not going to be on top because it's going to supination to pronation. So I've never really understood what people mean by on top of the baseball. I mean, I guess here you're on top of it, but it's impossible to go through supination and pronation and not have the forearm rotate over the top of the baseball. So I've always just thought that was just kind of a nonsensical buzzword.
Strikes. Okay, he doesn't have command of the strike zone. All these little things. Pitching is a science. It's really difficult. Okay, and a lot of little people, they just get the most powerful arm, throw it for 6 innings. That guy will burn out by high school because nobody ever taught him anything about mechanics. We're doing this for health, and we're doing this for maximum performance. Okay, so let's do it in one.
This is going to be great because I'm going to slow this down, and I bet you he's not going to throw anything like he's teaching it. And this is what I've been saying about other videos. No one actually throws like they teach it. They don't look at high-speed video. Number one thing I bet, when this kid lands, his foot's going to be completely or pretty close to open. Just watch. Okay, he balances. Okay, watch his front foot. Look, it's completely open. It's completely open at landing. He's doing exactly what he said not to do. So that's pretty funny. And he's hyperangulate. So he's already pulling his trunk on his glove side. Let's go back. See, but he's rotating hard, but he's not really getting that much hip shoulder separation. Look at the hyperangulation in his arm. So this is why I break down these mechanical approaches, because this coach thinks he's doing his athletes good when really he's causing hyperangulation, one of the leading causes in arm injuries. His mechanical approach is possibly causing that. So it's like you gotta look at high-speed footage, see what your athletes are really throwing like, and look at the science. See, and okay, so he's holding on to the baseball, so I'm not going to analyze the end of the delivery there.
He got all his backside into the baseball.
I mean, just because you have a big leg kick doesn't mean getting all your backside into the baseball really does anything.
Okay, so he maximizes what body he has.
I mean, that kid has a lot more potential there. But anyway, so that's my breakdown of DNA Sports teaching correct pitching mechanics. I guess we got to come up with a grade. I would say C-, because there was a lot of things not correct in that video. I agreed with on maybe some of the stuff, but a lot of the mechanical approach I didn't think was too good. So, like, subscribe, and leave a comment if you'd like to see another kind of analysis. Thank you guys so much for watching this video, and I'll see you guys next time.